If you think people are making too big a deal about ultra-processed foods, this video is for you. We are before the holiday of Pesach, Passover, which is a time when there's a lot of ultra-processed food around, especially now. Like, it used to be that Pesach, like, there was nothing to eat, but now, because of the advance in food technologies, there's a lot of very enticing and delicious and sometimes even better than what you'll find the rest of the year, kosher for Pesach foods that have been ultra processed. And that's why I think was so critical for me to give this information that I'm about to give you in this video. This video is a little longer than I usually tend to make it, but I think that this is super important that people are aware of the harms of ultra-processed food and this recent research that has come out that gives really this like critical information about these foods. So first of all, let's define what that means, ultra-processed foods. There is a classification of foods called the NOVA classification, which basically says that class 1 is like completely unprocessed foods like meat and vegetables and eggs. Class 2 would be foods that have been minimally processed, which means maybe they have 2 ingredients, maybe something has been taken out of them or they've been ground or something like that, but nothing has been added. Class 3 is already foods that would be like jams or things like that, that they are quite processed. But class 4, which is the ultra-processed foods, is basically foods that have been created by industrial kitchens or food industry. They take a lot of stuff out of the food, then they add a lot of stuff in. They do all kinds of manipulations and processing to the food that really, at the end of the day, it doesn't come out anything similar to what we have in nature. Okay, so these are not things that you can make necessarily at home very well, or they've been added a lot of additives and flavorings and emulsifiers to make it very, very delicious, very easy to eat, right? It's even like very soft to chew. And many of these foods will have sugar, starch, and fat, which is that combination that makes food absolutely irresistible. Add to it all kinds of flavorings and emulsifiers that makes a mouth feel good and aromas, and then make it cheap and aggressively market it. And then on Pesach, when you have to be careful about the real food you're eating, and all of a sudden there's this abundance of cakes and cookies and ultra processed things and I don't know, things for the soup, like soup almonds and all that stuff. And it's very, very hard to get away from it during Pesach. And somehow we also have that feeling like, you know what, it's just 1 week, it doesn't matter, there's nothing else to eat, and we make for ourselves all these excuses. It's like a vacation, so there's a lot of very festive meals. We go out to friends come to us. There's all the chagim, like the yontiff meals, right? That it's like these long drawn out meals. You have to make desserts for them. So Pesach is a time where there's a lot of these Nova 4 ultra processed foods around. And that's why this is so critical, so important that you understand that it's not just that these foods are fattening and that's it. These foods are harmful to your health. And now the research has come out that really proves this beyond a doubt. I would compare this article that came out in the lead medical journals, which is the British Journal of Medicine and the Lancet. They are the ones who published it. These are medical journals that very finely critique the article, the research that comes into them before they publish it. And both of those magazines published this article. Now, what the researchers did was they took all the articles that have good evidence for the harms of consumption of ultra-processed food, and they made what's called an umbrella analysis, which means they basically took all that information and summarized it. What are the harms that ultra-processed foods can do? So here, and by the way, this article is open source. I'm going to leave the link where you can download this article from the British Journal of Medicine in the well, if it's Facebook, it's going to be in the comments. And if it's on YouTube, it's going to be in the description of this video. So you can download it and read it yourself. It's very technical, but people who are comfortable with that, I highly suggest you read this. Okay, this is the, I don't know if you see it backwards or not, but it's Ultra Processed Food Exposure and Adverse Health Outcomes Umbrella Review of Epidemiological Meta-Analysis, which means that basically the objective was to evaluate all the what's called evidence-based medicine, all the evidence that the real good evidence that there is about the harms of consuming ultra-processed foods. That means these foods that really are not what we find in nature. Most of the foods that we eat today, foods that have more than 4 ingredients, foods that you wouldn't be able to make yourself in the kitchen. So what this umbrella, I'm going to give you the bottom line. What this umbrella review found consistent evidence of a higher risk of adverse health outcomes associated with greater ultra-processed food exposure. Convincing and highly suggestive evidence related to early death and adverse cardiometabolic and this is really important, mental health. What that means basically is that they found that consuming these being exposed to a lot of these ultra processed foods makes people die earlier. It harms their heart health. It harms their metabolic health, type 2 diabetes and all, high blood pressure and obesity. Those are all considered adverse metabolic health outcomes and mental health outcomes. What they found in this meta-analysis is that people who consume more ultra-processed foods are more at risk for mental health diseases like anxiety and depression. Now, this is no surprise to me because so many of my clients who come to my sugar-free recovery program, once they get off the sugar and the junk and they stop eating this junk food, they tell me that they had mood swings before that they find they're so much calmer, they're so much happier, they have so much more energy, they're less anxious. I've experienced absolutely on myself, but now we have the medical evidence to support that. Now, I see this research as, and I'm going to give you an example, okay? By the way, this meta-analysis took data from about 10 million patients. This isn't something that they took 2 or 3 articles and that's all. They took 45 meta-analysis and made an umbrella review of them, which was about 10 million patients, and they took 32 health parameters, including mortality, like death, cancer, mental, respiratory, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, and metabolic health. Metabolic would be obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, all those things. For example, what they found is just a 10% increase in consumption of ultra-processed foods raised people's risk to 12% for developing type 2 diabetes. That's just an example of this meta-analysis. They found also that it was related to higher risk in certain cancers, in gastrointestinal diseases. And now, this might not be news to you because a lot of people talk about this, but I find that this meta-analysis, that took all the evidence that there is and made it very, very clear that the research has been done that these foods are not just fattening. They're not empty calories. Ultra-processed foods, all those candies, ice creams, cakes, and things that we buy as if even like whole wheat crackers that have 17 ingredients in them is an ultra-processed food. So it doesn't really matter how brown or how green the packaging is or how many pictures of healthy people they have. It's very important to understand that ultra-processed foods means if you have to read the ingredients of everything that has a label. And real food doesn't need a label for you to know what you're eating. And on Pesach, has become in the last decade the ultra processed food party of the year. It's so much more important to be vigilant and to look at what you're eating, to really find if what you're buying might look innocent and they might package it as if it's healthy and give all these kinds of promises on the food label, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's so. So I'm going to put up a link to the Nova scale of what is processing of foods. But here's the thing, just remember that when you read the ingredients, when you need to read a nutritional label, right? Don't just think about what's in the food or how much is in it, but think about what they have done to that food in order to make it more delicious, more addictive, marketing it to make you eat it when maybe you didn't intend to, or to eat more than you intended to, like all those sales, right? Buy 2 and get 1 free. So then you buy 3 instead of 1, and then you have more of that in your house. It's really important to be aware of all these things and to lower the consumption of ultra-processed foods. Now, people who come to my program, it's not about lowering the consumption of these foods. It's about the fact that they are extremely addicted to them and are eating them even when they know it's harmful and they just can't stop. And then, just like any other addictive substance, many times the solution is to quit. So this also gives more motivation and justification for people who have quit sugar and quit junk food, why this is a good thing. All those people who say, like, if you don't eat any chocolate, that's not healthy because you're depriving yourself and stuff like that. Well, is it not healthy not to have any cigarettes because it relaxes you? That's what the doctor said in the 60s. But then research came out that was irrefutable about how much tobacco harms health. And now this seminal article that shows that all the research that is coming out is showing that these ultra-processed foods are harming people's health. This is not just something that is empty calories. This is something that is actively making people live shorter lives, have a lower quality of life. It harms your mental health. It harms your metabolic health. It brings on diseases like cancer and diabetes. So please, really, it's important for us to see ultra-processed foods as a substance that is toxic and addictive. And some people can really eat it very much in moderation. That's great. But just remember, those vegan burgers are ultra processed too, because as opposed to, let's say, alcohol, cigarettes, where you drink or you don't drink, you smoke or you don't smoke, when it comes to these foods, it is so insidious. It is so, the food industry laces our foods that they sell us as real food in the grocery store with so much of these ultra processed so much of this processing and these ultra processed products that we really, really here have to be much more vigilant and much more aware. I'm going to give you an example. I show in my sugar recovery program how there's certain vegan burgers where if the World Health Organization has recommended not consuming more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar, a teaspoon is 4 grams, in your daily intake, well, those hamburgers have already like 2 or 3 teaspoons of them, like one serving, two hamburgers has like 3 teaspoons already. Half your daily intake gone just from vegan burgers. So allowing yourself on Pesach to consume more of these ultra processed foods is not a good idea. It is not a good thing. So now I'm going to give you some tips for Pesach, how to lower your consumption of ultra-processed foods. First of all, I gave the first tip before, which is read the ingredients of every single product you buy. Take your glasses or a magnifying glass or whatever it is you need to be able to read all the small print on the labels, because that's where the real information is going to be. Not about the healthy pictures of people or it says all natural ingredients. That doesn't mean anything. Heroin is also all natural ingredients. So what? So remember not to look at the front of the label. Read the back. Read the ingredients. Look at how much added sugar or how much processed ingredients are in this That's the first thing. The second thing is give more healthy options and less ultra-processed options in the food that you serve. Yes, this does mean that we have to make more of an effort, on Pesach especially, to make real food. But aren't we worth it? Aren't our loved ones worth it? Aren't our children worth it? So that's the other thing. And another thing is, if you are serving dessert, make one kind of ultra-processed dessert, like junky dessert, and then bring fruit and bring healthy options as well. So this is my message to you. Less ultra-processed foods, more natural foods, especially be wary of this and careful about this on Pesach, when now in our modern age, they're offering us so many options of these ultra-processed, unhealthy, life-shortening products. So if you, first of all, please don't forget to like and share this video and leave in the comments your recommendations how to lower ultra-processed food consumption on Pesach specifically. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Have a happy Pesach, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye.